Elon had an interview with Bloomberg this morning, and he says that sales are already turning around for Tesla. That while they may have lost some on the left, they picked up some people on the right, and that their weakest region is Europe. And this is true of basically all manufacturers. Now, this isn't exactly what we're seeing on broad-based data sets. Most people who are tracking sales for Tesla indicate that sales for Q2 are actually trending down compared to Q1. But the good news is we don't actually have to worry about Tesla sales until July 1st because we're still only about halfway through the quarter. If you look, for example, at Troy Teslike, I always like giving his forecast a look. I think he's generally pretty accurate. He says that Tesla is currently 50,000 units behind last year after Q1. To close the gap over the remaining 3 quarters, this is on an annual basis, they need to deliver 16,700 units more than last year in each quarter. Since Q2 deliveries were 443,000 units, achieving that number would look like a strong result, but at this point, it doesn't look possible. In other words, just based on sort of the VIN data that Troy is tracking, it looks like they're tracking a substantially lower set of somewhere around 401,000 units to be delivered for Q1, which is a little bit at odds with what Elon suggests when it comes to actual transactional data for Teslas. That said, Elon does say that if you want insider information, the stock analysts have it, and because Tesla stock is up, it must mean we're doing good. I think this is kind of a unique way of evaluating whether Tesla stock is doing good or not, mostly because I think the stock market is really excited about general purpose robotaxi that doesn't require geofencing or mapping and general purpose robotics. I think both of those things are really what are propping up Tesla's valuation. And short of those two things, Tesla as a car manufacturer is probably worth in the low 100s, somewhere around 120, 130. And so any premium that you're paying above that today, which is about $200 worth, appears to be for robotics and robotaxi. Now, that does create a significant lift for the stock because the stock has a $1.08 market cap, so $1.08 trillion market cap. And if you say 2/3 of the value or 70% of the business right now is basically valued in let's see, 130 divided by 347, say that, call it 60% of the business is basically robotics right now and robotaxi. That means you're paying about $648 million for the enthusiasm around robotaxis and humanoid robotics, which honestly, in the long-term grand scheme of things, could end up being a significant bargain should these technologies really end up proving themselves out. And Elon thinks the stock is basically trying to discount for that enthusiasm and saying like, hey, look, we must be doing something right. The stock's doing really well. Now, Elon reiterated, and it's one of the reasons we saw a temporary pop in the stock, that he does see himself as CEO within the next 5 years unless he dies for some reason. Although he does say that he really wants sufficient voting control at Tesla to prevent activists from outing him. And so he thinks that's a really serious issue, and his pay package, not getting his pay package, really hurts him with that. So he's disappointed about that. He says he doesn't so much care about the money, he cares about that voting control. And this is probably why he's a little jealous of like a Mark Zuckerberg, because Mark Zuckerberg has voting control at Facebook. And it's one of the reasons I think they were able to get through the whole, Meta AI oopsies without Mark getting fired. And Mark has done a fantastic job in making the business recover through the bumps in the road by keeping that voting control. It's the same thing that we believe over at HouseHack as well. It's we invest in real estate in a very unique way, where we think when we buy a property for $100,000, it's worth $120,000 to $130,000 immediately after we buy it, and we do some fix up to it because we think we're buying real estate at a discount. Now, obviously, there's risk with that. Some discounts might only, you might be buying it for a 15% discount because, the market shifted or something was more expensive. Some deals you were getting a 30% discount because you just got a really good deal, whatever, right? And this is, of course, after fix up money. So, this is why we're just so excited about what we're doing at HouseHack, and I'm going to keep leading this charge at HouseHack I mean, probably for the next 50 years, but I mean, as long as I possibly can. But my goal is just to grow this company as much as possible before we go to IPO. So if you want to invest in this pre-IPO round, remember to go to househack.com. So you get a 5% yield while you're at it too, which is kind of unheard of for venture capital. Go check that out over at househack.com, and that's in addition to any stock growth. So he does say that SpaceX has no intentions of getting into weapons right now. This is interesting because our VC fund, which is separate from Househack, has exposure to SpaceX, and we're kind of like, it's an interesting vertical, but is that going to get you fired from a lot of different countries? I think what Arundel is doing, as an example, is pretty dang impressive, and I could imagine SpaceX going into that sort of direction at some point in the future, but I don't think that's something you really want to pre-announce. You know, get your constellation network up first and you know, covering the Earth even better than it already is. It's already doing great. Elon says that DOGE is an advisory group, that we're doing the best we can, and that we're not a dictator. We aim to go from $170 billion in savings to $2 trillion, but it's not going to happen overnight. He got a little fussy with the reporter over this, so I'm giving you a little bit of a TLDR here. But, you know, some people obviously question the $170 billion in cuts. They say, you know, a lot of those numbers are inflated or false or whatever. But let's say for a moment, let's give them credit and say they've gotten $170 billion in cuts. That's pretty good for the first 3 or 4 months of operations. Now, if the truth is it's only about a third as large and the biggest cuts come at the beginning and we can't really annualize it out, then yeah, DOGE may end up making not much of a dent in the fiscal deficit, especially with the new tax plan that we have coming out, which I know is being pitched as being budget neutral for about 5 years, but not the years after that, given that a lot of these tax benefits are going to likely be permanent, unless, of course, future laws change them. Elon says he wants to do a lot less political spending in the coming future. He says he's done enough. He says we're close to artificial general intelligence, and we're launching robotaxis next month. I don't actually think we're close to artificial general intelligence, but that's all right. Political also has a piece out. This is separate from Musk's interview this morning, but Political has a piece out, 2 pieces actually. One where they complain about XAI emitting a bunch of toxic, emissions into the atmosphere because they're running sort of like these propane, energy generators for their XAI data center, and they didn't get permits for those. And so there's some argument here. There's another argument that through the Trump administration, the EPA wants to sort of enable those things anyway and make it okay. So it's sort of like, do it, ask for forgiveness later, and then my buddy Trump is going to take care of me anyway. That's what some folks are saying is going on. But what is interesting is Donald Trump has started talking about Elon a whole lot less than he used to. In fact, if you look at Donald Trump posts on Truth Social about Elon Musk, here's a chart of it. You can see they've fallen off a cliff as soon as Liberation Day came around. You see no more mentions of Elon, and you don't see mentions of Elon in fundraiser appeals either. They abruptly stopped in early March. There's only been one fundraising mentioning a Musk, and it was a May email that touting a Gulf of America hat that Elon had tried on. So, some people in the Republican Party say that Elon was just bad for polling and bad for the GOP in general, that, his showing in Wisconsin was sort of his death knell when he wasn't able to get the Republican judge, elected with his monetary contributions and wearing the cheese hat. And some people say that was sort of like the peak political involvement for Elon. Although, in fairness, he's in Saudi Arabia with a bunch of CEOs right now, speaking at the investment forum where he was just interviewed by Bloomberg. And some people are just saying that Elon's just basically become Donald Trump's sort of political fall guy for anything that was maybe unpopular or an oopsies. But so far, it does seem like Elon, especially based on that interview that we saw with him this morning, it seems like he's somewhat stepping back from his enthusiasm around politics. Anyway, with that said, go check out Househack, go check out our sponsors for the channel. Remember to come back every day around this time for your full breakdown of what's going on in the day. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.